Welcome to the lecture on criminal actors. Within this topic, we'll cover individuals, organised crime, insiders, hacktivists, terrorists, and national state actors. One thing that is evident is that when it comes to cybercrime offenders, most of them are men. Gender becomes the most salient characteristic. Although there may be differences with age or location, research tends to estimate that about 95% of cybercrime offenders are men. However, this is not altogether unexpected. In relation to offending more generally, women are less likely to commit crimes, and when they do, it is generally less severe. This is true across self-reported and official data, as well as across offence types. Furthermore, there are generally fewer women, computer science students, and professionals. With Chua, I took a mixed methods approach to better understand the gendered aspects of cybercrime offending. We found that women offenders commit less technical cybercrimes than men. When they are involved in crimes that require a high level of technical skill, it appears that they typically are not the primary offender, engage in less serious activities, and are only transiently involved. Participants indicated that women have different social roles and expectations than men, and that women face barriers when seeking to become accepted by deviant communities, the types of communities they use for learning and information sharing. Overall, age is positively skewed, with offenders tending towards the younger side. At Cambridge, we've been collecting data on arrests and prosecutions for UK alleged offenders. The average age that these offenders came to court, which may be several years after any offence was committed, was 32 years. However, older offenders are also included, with the eldest being 69. Next, let's look at organised crime. The UN's Convention Against Transnational Organised Crime defines an organised criminal group as a structured group of 3 or more people, existing for a period of time and acting in concert with the aim of committing one or more serious crimes or offences established in accordance with this convention, in order to obtain, directly or indirectly, a financial or other material benefit. The UN define a structured group as a group that is not randomly formed for the immediate commission of offence, and that does not need to have formally defined roles for its members, continuity of its membership, or a developed structure. A serious crime is defined as an offence that attracts a penalty of at least 4 years. The Convention does not define a period of time, and this can be ambiguous. However, criminologists take a different view on what organised crime is. They point out that organised crime does not mean crime that is organised. Varese, an Oxford criminologist, points out that organised crime is a form of governance. Their attempts to regulate and control the production and distribution of a given commodity or service. Lasthouse questions whether online trading forums are a form of mafia, concluding that while they might be like mafias, they're categorically not. Hutchins and Collier analysed the Cambridge Computer Crime Database to find out more about those that offend in the workplace, which makes up almost 1/4 of computer crime offenders prosecuted in the UK. Compared to those that offend outside the workplace, insiders are significantly older, are more likely to commit data or system breaches than other offence types, and be sole offenders. We also found that more women offend outside the workplace than within, but computer crimes committed in the workplace were significantly more likely to involve women alleged offenders than offences outside the workplace. Of those that offend in the workplace, the largest staff grouping included police officers and police staff who misuse their legitimate access in ways in which they're not authorised. This is likely to reflect differences in the types of organisations that pursue criminal action against insiders. We anticipate that there are many other insiders who are either not detected or who face internal disciplinary action rather than prosecution. Another way to conceptualise attackers is by their motivations. Hacktivists are typically motivated by ecological, political, ethical activism. They may use online attacks to protest against perceived unfairness. Taylor wrote the seminal book on hacktivists, in which he outlined the types of methods used. These include denial-of-service attacks and email bombs, which overload the recipient's online services and email systems. When Taylor refers to web hacks and computer break-ins, which at the time was mainly web defacement, but in relation to hacktivism, this now usually refers to getting access to a website and changing it to something humorous or political. So examples of this include changing the CIA's website so that it read Central Stupidity Agency. However, since Taylor's work, it could be argued that hacktivists have gone beyond website defacement to breaking into and releasing confidential information in protest. Examples include the release of documentation relating to the NSA and CIA. WikiLeaks states that it fights social corruption through principled leaking. Of course, the line between what is considered to be whistleblowing and what is illegal is fraught, and in itself politically motivated. The final category considered by Taylor is computer viruses and worms. It is generally stated that these days malware is being deployed for more profit-driven, malicious activities rather than hacktivism. The main example that Taylor provides is the WANK worm, which spread in 1989. WANK stood for Worm Against Nuclear Killers, and the worm is believed to have cost NASA up to $500,000. It was designed to stop the launch of a NASA probe that contained nuclear materials, but failed to do so. Infected computers displayed a message stating, "You talk of times of peace for all, and then prepare for war." Lyrics from the Australian band Midnight Oil, who were known for political activism and opposition to nuclear power and nuclear weapons. What is considered to be terrorism is hotly debated. The Global Terrorist Database uses the definition intentional act of violence or threat of violence by a non-state actor that additionally has to meet at least two of the three criteria. The violent act was aimed at attaining a political, economic, religious or social goal. The violent act included evidence of an intention to coerce, intimidate or convey some other message to a larger audience or audiences other than the immediate victims, and the violent act was outside the precepts of international humanitarian law. These criteria allow for greater flexibility for applying various definitions of terrorism. The actual incidence of cyber terrorism is debatable. Some say that there have been no attacks that can be considered to be cyber terror, or if they have, that they have not caused widespread fear, coercion, or intimidation. Others point to activities that could be considered as hacktivism or nation-state attacks as evidence of cyber terrorism. In some cases, it comes down to attribution, which can be particularly hard to ascertain. For example, there have been attacks in Ukraine that affected banks, power companies, ministries, and newspapers. The attacks were caused by malware called Petya, a type of ransomware. It was alleged that the malware actually had a different purpose, which was to cause maximum damage, and this occurred just a month after the WannaCry attack. It has been claimed that the attack against Ukraine was an example of cyber terrorism. However, it's also claimed that Russia is behind the attack, although they deny this. This causes confusion. As we saw before, terrorism is defined as being due to non-state actors. Whether any purported acts of cyber terrorism actually fit the definition of terrorism is open to debate. Another area that relatively little is known about is the commission of cybercrime for the purposes of funding terrorism. While this is often raised in policy and policing fields, there is little supporting research, again due to problems with attribution. Finding evidence for this is the difficult part. What is probably less contentious is the use of the internet for terrorist purposes, such as planning attacks, distributing propaganda, and recruitment. Terrorists may use information freely available on the internet to plan their attacks, such as how to build bombs, as well as the use of legitimate information, such as satellite imagery to map out terrain. Websites maintained by terrorist organisations may distribute propaganda, solicit funding, and recruit members by reaching an international audience. The internet can also be used for communicating with terrorist organisations. This can extend to psychological warfare, which refers to deceptive communication to give an impression that an attack is imminent, therefore distracting law enforcement and intelligence services from other activities. Cyber warfare typically occurs when countries attack each other electronically at times of conflict. Such attacks have typically included denial of service attacks against and defacement of government websites. Espionage has known to be committed electronically as far back as 1986, as detailed by The Cuckoo's Egg, written by Stoll, which recounts his efforts to track down a German hacker who, using the university network that Stoll was protecting, was accessing United States government agencies in order to provide information to the Soviet KGB. Espionage is also known to have occurred across allies. For example, revelations by Snowden alleged that in 2013 the UK surveillance agency GCHQ had hacked Belgacom, Belgium's largest telecommunications provider. Not much information about this has entered the public domain, despite a criminal investigation being started years ago. It would appear that nation-states are amongst the most capable when it comes to using the tools and techniques that are associated with cybercrime.